Albert Breer, senior NFL reporter, MMQB, covered the NFL for almost 20 years. All right, listen, Green Bay's got a strategy. They don't draft receivers, backs, tight ends first round. They don't reach. Jimmy Johnson told me earlier this week, the only time he failed in the draft is when he reached for offensive pieces to help an old quarterback, Dan Marino, that he had sort of a theory on how to do it. Green Bay said, our defense has to get better. We're not going to reach. Should I be mad at Green Bay? Should Aaron Rodgers? What'd you make of it?
No, I mean, I think that they can win different ways if you're drafting this way. And you look at the players they're bringing in, Devontae Wyatt, the defensive tackle from Georgia, Quay Walker, the linebacker from Georgia. Those are guys who have played at a championship level the last couple of years. They've been in big games against real competition. And that would indicate that these guys are going to be able to come in and play right away for you. And that's really what Aaron Rodgers needs. Like, he doesn't need projects. If they draft like Christian Watson from North Dakota State, for example, the guy's got a lot of talent. He might be Vincent Jackson 5 years from now. But can you count on him to play for you and play a big role for you in 2022 or 2023? And so I think sometimes we hyper-focus on certain positions with these older quarterbacks when really I think the most relevant thing is getting talent in there that's ready to contribute right away. I think the Packers did that yesterday. And the other thing to mention here too, traditionally, the Packers have found the receivers in the second and third rounds. You go through it over the years. It's been 20 years since they took one in the first round. And then you look at some of their hits, Randall Cobb, James Jones, Jordy Nelson, and then Devontae Adams. All those guys were second and third round picks.
You know, so Arizona trades for Hollywood Brown, and I was looking this morning. I'm thinking they got DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore, who's really athletic, A.J. Green, Zach Ertz, James Conner, and you could say, oh, they're just trying to appease Kyler. And I'm like, no, what they're telling me is they know they got to go toe-to-toe with Sean McVay and Stafford. I don't know. People think they're just trying to make Kyler happy. I don't have a problem. I mean, I look at that, and I'm like, my God, that's loaded.
I mean, I think there are two things that people might miss here. Number one, they're in 3 and 4 receiver sets a lot, so they need depth at receiver more than other teams do. They struck out on Andy Isabella a couple years ago. They lose Christian Kirk. And here's the second key, Colin. When you talk about losing Kirk and striking out on Isabella, everyone who's had DeAndre Hopkins on their team, whether it's in Houston or in Arizona, knows that you have to be fast around him. He is so much more effective when you've got burners around him. That's why the Texans all those years ago drafted Will Fuller in the first round, why they had Kenny Stills on the team. You want to have speed around DeAndre Hopkins because he really can't run like a lot of the other top receivers can run. And so, this is about Kyler and it's about Cliff's scheme. But I also think it's about getting the most out of your number one receiver who you're paying $27 million a year. And I think Hollywood Brown helps you get more out of DeAndre Hopkins, which is a big thing for them.
So Philadelphia goes and gets A.J. Brown from Tennessee. And I was saying, as we were preparing for the show today, I said, Howie Roseman I think he kind of senses here. The Giants did not give Daniel Jones the fifth-year option. They are going to have a little chaos in a year. Dallas, bad off season. Carson Wentz, a report this week, he's just a bridge. They were really aggressive, and I look at A.J. Brown to Jalen Hurts, and I'm like, I don't know. They haven't drafted receivers well. That felt like a big get for me for Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I think it helps you get more out of Devontae Smith because they're contrasting styles. They've got Dallas Goedert at tight end. Like you said, Miles Sanders in the backfield. Their offensive line's been really good for a long time. So I think it gives you the ability to compete in the here and the now. And then the other thing I think that you have to look at here is getting answers on Jalen Hurts. And I know we talked about this last week with Zach Wilson, and we've talked about it over the last couple of months with Tua Tagovailoa. The Eagles are approaching a pretty critical point here with Jalen Hurts. He's going into his third year. His fourth year is a contract year, and he doesn't have a fifth-year option because he wasn't a first-round pick. And they have 2 first-round picks next year when maybe a C.J. Stroud, a Bryce Young, a Tyler Van Dyke emerges as a true franchise quarterback, which a lot of people thought this year's draft class lacked. And so I think if you're the Eagles, getting A.J. Brown in there, having Devontae Smith in year 2 helps you get answers in 2022 on Jalen Hurts, and that helps you chart the course for 2023. So it does help you in the here and the now. I think Howie Roseman does sense a little bit of an opening there in the NFC East. but it also is going to help him with his long-term plans at quarterback, because the better you are about around a young quarterback, and you know this, Colin, the easier it is to get a clear answer on who he is.
Yeah. So, listen, the Cowboys have had an interesting offseason. They've lost a lot of production. An elite pass rusher, a 1,000-yard receiver, a right tackle. I think Cedric Wilson's a really good number 3. And they get a guard, and they get a little defensive. I got to be honest, this morning, I think I would take Philadelphia to win that division. I don't think it's been a good offseason for Dallas. What'd you make of their pick? And Jerry was kind of defensive, showing the draft board. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it didn't look like Steven was very happy with his dad when he showed that draft board. I look at it like kind of the Cowboys going back to their roots here a little bit. And, when they've been successful, and everybody's a product of their own experiences, right? Like in the 90s, how did they win? Well, they won with the triplets, but they won behind a big, powerful offensive line. And then you go back like 13, 14 years ago with Tony Romo. When did they struggle with Romo? It was when they had issues on the offensive line, when that offensive line with Flozell Adams and Leonard Davis got old. And then when did they get successful again? When were they able to get more out of Romo? And when were they able to support Dak Prescott the best? It was when they spent first-round picks in, I think, a 4-year period on 3 offensive linemen, and Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith. And so, to me, I think this is an acknowledgement that group, that Tyron Smith, Zach Martin group, is starting to age out. Obviously, Lyle Collins is gone now. And this is them investing back into an area where they've always had a foundation when they've been good. And so I understand what you're saying, Colin. They lost, obviously, a couple of receivers that were really important to them. They lost a high-end pass rusher in Randy Gregory that they really wanted to keep. But to me, this is more of a big picture pick where they're looking at it and saying, we need to start taking care of our offensive line, because we've already seen guys like Frederick and Collins go out the door, and we need to start preparing for the days when we don't have Zach Martin and Tyron Smith anymore.
All right, about 45 seconds to a minute. Second round's got a lot of good defensive players at the top. A lot of SEC defensive players. Is there a guy I should keep my eye on in the top of the second round, a team or a player? What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think the corners are something to pick. The corners are definitely worth paying attention to in the first 10 picks or so. Andrew Booth, I think a first-round grade for a lot of teams, has a lot of injury issues. He's one. Kyler Gordon, the corner from Washington, who didn't run as fast as people thought he would, but is a really good player, is another. And then I think Nakobe Dean, who's got a ton of medical issues, but was a great player at Georgia. He's somebody to keep an eye on. And, of course, I think the story of this draft, Kenny Pickett's the only quarterback to go in the first round. That leaves 4 guys that I think are top 2 or 3 round picks out there for teams today. So, obviously, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, and Desmond Ridder are guys to watch. And Ridder, could go as high as the 35th pick to Tennessee. There's a great relationship there, of course, between the Titans head coach, Mike Vrabel, and Ridder's college coach, Luke Fickell. So keep an eye on that one early in the night tonight.
Monday morning quarterback Albert Breer. Great seeing you, my man. This is fun. Thanks.
Thanks, Colin.
You bet. Really enjoyed last night. It wasn't a star-studded draft, but, instead, we got all these trades. And, we always say, Joy, we like aggressive. Philadelphia aggressive.
Aggressive's winning.
Saints aggressive. Arizona aggressive. A lot of NFC teams. Detroit aggressive. Good for Detroit. They're my favorite bad team in American sports, the Detroit Lions. I thought they had a good night. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.